Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. Let me ask you something right from the start. Have you ever sat there staring at your phone wondering why her texts swing like a pendulum? One day she's warm, affectionate, flirting freely. The next cold, distant, as if you were a stranger passing by. And in those quiet, uncertain moments, when you replay every conversation in your mind, you might ask yourself, is this confusion my fault? Is she confused? Or is this just how dating works today? But let me tell you something you may not have realized yet. Her mixed signals are not random. They are not an accident. When a woman sends warmth and then pulls back, when she smiles but withdraws, when she leans in and then leaves you wondering, it's not because she doesn't know what she's doing. These patterns speak. They reveal something deeper about her needs, her desires, her insecurities, and sometimes about your readiness to read between the lines. This isn't about blaming her or blaming you. It's about decoding what these mixed signals really mean, and why so many men feel trapped in this push-pull cycle that leaves them exhausted and doubting themselves. So today, we're going to lean into this complexity together, not to simplify it, but to understand it, so that you can show up in your relationships with clarity and confidence. Let me ask you something right from the start. Have you ever sat there staring at your phone wondering why her texts swing like a pendulum? One day she's warm, affectionate, flirting freely, the next cold, distant, as if you were a stranger passing by. And in those quiet, uncertain moments, when you replay every conversation in your mind, you might ask yourself, is this confusion my fault? Is she confused? Or is this just how dating works today? But let me tell you something you may not have realized yet. Her mixed signals are not random. They are not an accident. When a woman sends warmth and then pulls back, when she smiles but withdraws, when she leans in and then leaves you wondering, it's not because she doesn't know what she's doing. These patterns speak. They reveal something deeper about her needs, her desires, her insecurities, and sometimes about your readiness to read between the lines. This isn't about blaming her or blaming you. It's about decoding what these mixed signals really mean, and why so many men feel trapped in this push-pull cycle that leaves them exhausted and doubting themselves. So let's begin right here together. Let's talk about how mixed signals are often part of a larger emotional dance, a way for her to test, to protect, and sometimes even to seduce without committing. Have you noticed how attraction rarely feels linear? Attraction is not simply a yes or a no. It's a language, and sometimes it's an ambivalent one. Her ambivalence is part of her story. She might be saying, I want to feel desired, but I'm not ready to give myself fully. Or I like your attention, but I need to know that you will stay consistent when I withdraw. When a woman sends mixed signals, often it's not because she's confused. It's because she's navigating competing needs, desire and fear, closeness and independence, emotional hunger and emotional self-protection. I want you to imagine this like a dance floor, one step forward, one step back, and if you keep following her every move without grounding yourself, you end up reacting rather than leading. You begin to feel anxious, insecure, unsure of where you stand, and that insecurity, let's be honest, often leads to behavior that feels needy or reactive. You text too soon, you question her, you pull back dramatically just to protect your own ego. But the truth is, women notice everything. They feel your energy, they sense your tension, and they respond accordingly. Now, why is this important for you as a man over 30? Because this is often the moment where you begin to question yourself. You say, I should know better by now. You expect yourself to have all the answers to stay composed. And when you don't, when her mixed signals pull you into emotional disarray, you feel like you've failed. But no, you haven't failed. You've just misunderstood the nature of this dance. Her mixed signals aren't about confusion. They are a form of communication. Sometimes they're even a test. Will you lose yourself if I pull back? Will you abandon your center when I act distant? Will you still hold your ground when I'm unpredictable? These tests are rarely conscious, but they matter deeply. Because what she's really asking is this: can you hold space for my ambivalence? Can you remain steady while I sort through my own inner world? Can you remain a man who is sure of himself, no matter what I do? Now let's pause for a moment and reflect. How do you typically respond when she becomes distant? Do you chase harder? Do you retreat into silence? Do you analyze every word and replay every moment, hoping for certainty where none exists? If you recognize yourself in this, I want you to take a deep breath, because this is your opportunity to shift, not by changing her, but by understanding her. You see, emotional ambiguity is part of her experience. It's part of many women's relational experience, especially in today's dating landscape where vulnerability feels risky, expectations are unclear, and emotional safety is rare. But you can choose to stand firm. You can choose to observe her shifts without taking them personally. You can choose to meet her ambivalence with your own steadiness, your emotional center. This is the first key insight I want to offer you today. When a woman sends mixed signals, she's revealing something about her own dance with vulnerability. She may like you, she may even desire you, but she may also fear that closeness means losing control, or that opening up means inviting potential disappointment. Your job is not to fix her fear. Your job is to stay aware of what's happening emotionally, aware of your own reactions, aware that your masculine strength is defined by your ability to remain grounded even when her signals confuse you, because here's what happens next. The more grounded you are, the less power those mixed signals have over you. Suddenly, you're no longer anxiously waiting for her next text or her next move. Instead, you're observing her from a place of clarity. You begin to see her distance not as rejection, but as a moment where she's working through her own emotions. And that changes everything. It's like when you stop chasing someone who's running. You give them the space to realize their own feelings. Sometimes her mixed signals are an unconscious invitation for you to embody this steadiness so she can trust you more deeply. That doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It doesn't mean allowing her to manipulate you emotionally. It means recognizing the emotional weather for what it is, temporary, unpredictable, but not necessarily about you. So if she leans in today and pulls away tomorrow, ask yourself, can I stay consistent? Can I communicate honestly and calmly? Can I remain the same man regardless of whether she is warm or cold? This is not about playing games. It's about playing your role as a man who knows himself, who honors his emotional boundaries, and who is willing to witness her complexity without needing to control it. And as we continue this conversation, we're going to go even deeper into this emotional dynamic. We'll explore how some women use mixed signals not just as an expression of their ambivalence, but as a way to maintain power, to keep you on edge, to manage their own uncertainty by making you uncertain. We'll also look at how you can identify when mixed signals become toxic, when they cross a line from natural ambivalence into manipulation. But first, stay with me, because it starts here with your ability to pause, breathe, and understand that her signals, confusing as they may seem, are never random. They are a window into her emotional world, a world you can learn to understand, not by chasing clarity from her, but by standing firmly in your own clarity as a man. And this is where you begin to take your power back. So as you're sitting with this realization, that her mixed signals reflect her own ambivalence and internal conflict, not necessarily a verdict on your worth, the question becomes, how should you respond? Because here's the secret that many men miss. Your response to her ambivalence shapes the emotional space between you. When you react with frustration, anxiety, or desperation, You unwittingly create a fragile environment where both of you feel insecure. But when you respond with calm curiosity, when you embody steadiness without losing your warmth, something shifts. You see, many women, consciously or not, test a man's emotional center. When she goes cold after an evening where sparks were flying, she's not always pulling away from you. Sometimes she's pulling into herself. She's feeling vulnerable and asking herself, can I trust what I'm feeling? Can I trust him? Can I trust myself? And this is where many men falter. They think they have to convince her. They rush to reassure, to analyze, to decode every gesture or message. They start walking on eggshells, adjusting their tone, texting more carefully, checking whether each response was enough or too much. But what she's really looking for, whether she can articulate it or not, is not a man who perfectly reads every signal. She's looking for a man who isn't thrown off by her unpredictability, a man who remains in his power, who communicates his care and interest without demanding constant validation from her behavior. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're on a date with a woman and the energy is playful, flirtatious. She's leaning in, smiling, laughing at your jokes, touching your arm softly. The next day, you send a text that goes unanswered for hours, maybe a full day, and when she finally replies, her tone feels cooler, distant. This moment right here, this is the emotional fork in the road where most men get lost. Your first instinct might be to mirror her coldness, to withdraw as a form of self-protection, to play the game of withholding just as she seems to be doing. Or you might lean in too hard, send a second text, ask her if everything is okay, try to reignite the warmth you felt the day before. But neither of these extremes truly serves you. The more powerful response lies in staying steady. Send your message when you feel like it, not as a reaction to her temperature shift. Maintain your presence without becoming overly invested in winning her warmth back immediately. When she feels that you are unbothered, not cold, not clingy, just centered, she begins to experience a sense of emotional safety. And emotional safety is what allows her to drop the mask of mixed signals and show up more authentically. Her hot and cold behavior is often a form of self-protection. It might come from past experiences where she's been hurt, disappointed, or made to feel unsafe in her vulnerability. And even if she deeply desires connection, she may hesitate, testing whether you can hold space for that hesitancy without crumbling. This is why it's so important that you as a man recognize when you're being invited into a deeper dynamic, rather than taking every shift as a personal rejection. It's as if her mixed signals are saying, if I reveal my uncertainty, will you become uncertain too, or will you remain the anchor in this interaction, showing me that you can handle all of who I am, not just my warmth, but my coolness too. But let's take this deeper still. Sometimes her mixed signals are not just about her inner conflict or fear. Sometimes they serve a different purpose entirely, a way of maintaining a sense of power. In today's dating world, where so many women have felt disempowered or objectified, some learn to wield emotional unpredictability as a way of feeling in control. It's subtle, but it happens. A warm glance one day, a dismissive shrug the next, an enthusiastic invitation followed by unexplained distance. And you might feel like you're being pulled into an emotional game you didn't sign up for. This is where you must stay keenly aware. Ask yourself, is this ambiguity coming from her emotional process, or is it a strategy? Is she keeping you off balance because she's afraid of intimacy, or because she wants to ensure that she holds the upper hand, that you are the one chasing, proving, pursuing endlessly? If it's the latter, you must hold your ground even more firmly, not with coldness, but with clarity. When a woman senses that you will chase endlessly despite her ambivalence, she may unconsciously lose respect for your emotional boundaries. And that's why this isn't just about understanding her mixed signals, it's about understanding yourself. Where are your limits? How much emotional unpredictability are you willing to tolerate before it begins to chip away at your self-respect? When you notice yourself caught in this pattern, waiting anxiously for a text, wondering why today feels distant after yesterday's closeness, that's your invitation to pause. To reflect, to ask yourself not, how do I make her warm again, but how do I remain steady in who I am regardless of what she does next? Because here's the truth, the man who can remain emotionally grounded when faced with uncertainty is the man who commands quiet respect. Not because he plays games or manipulates in return, but because he demonstrates through his steadiness that his sense of self-worth does not depend on any one woman's inconsistent behavior. This is where your power lies. The woman who sends mixed signals is watching whether she knows it or not, to see whether you'll lose yourself in her moods. And when you don't, when you remain warm but firm, caring but independent, available but not anxious, you create a completely different dynamic. You're showing her that you can hold space for complexity without demanding that she resolve her ambivalence instantly. And this gives her room to drop her defenses. It gives her room to come closer in a way that feels safer, freer, less pressured. Remember, love thrives in the presence of freedom and choice, not pressure and pursuit. When you embody this steadiness, you communicate, I desire you, I enjoy your warmth, but I'm okay either way. I'm not here to control you or fix you. I'm here as I am. That authenticity is magnetic. And as we continue this conversation, we'll look even more closely at how you can recognize when this dance of mixed signals becomes unhealthy or crosses a line into manipulation, and what you can do to protect yourself without closing your heart. But right now, I want you to sit with this. Mixed signals are an invitation for you to remain in your emotional center, to stay deeply connected to yourself even as she moves back and forth in her own rhythm. The more you cultivate that centeredness, the less confusing her signals will feel, and the more powerful you will become in every relationship you enter. And as you hold that idea in your mind, that your response shapes the emotional space between you, let's look deeper at what it really means to embody this centered presence. Because here's the subtle truth. When you remain calm in the face of her ambivalence, you're not just giving her space to work through her feelings. You're showing her that you trust yourself. Self-trust is profoundly attractive. It tells her without words, I am here because I want to be, not because I need you to soothe my uncertainty. I can witness your complexity without needing you to resolve it for me. Now imagine how different this feels for her. In a world where many women encounter men who panic at the first sign of withdrawal or coldness, your grounded presence becomes a rare experience, something that stands out, something that makes her feel both free and safe. This is when mixed signals begin to lose their power, not because they stop entirely, but because they no longer destabilize you. Let's go further. Many men over 30, perhaps like you, carry a certain expectation that by this stage in life, relationships should be easier. You expect yourself to have matured beyond this kind of emotional confusion. You think, why am I still stuck trying to decode someone's interest? Shouldn't this be simple by now? But relationships don't become simple just because we grow older. The truth is, emotional intimacy remains complex at every age. Women send mixed signals not because of your age or experience, but because these signals reflect emotional realities that have always existed: longing, fear, desire, self-protection, uncertainty. When you understand this, you stop feeling like you're failing when things aren't clear. Instead, you begin to appreciate that love itself lives in ambiguity. That's what makes it thrilling, but also challenging. So what do you do in this dance? You learn to pace yourself emotionally. When she comes close, receive her warmth with openness, but don't immediately invest your entire sense of emotional security into her presence. And when she pulls away, Don't interpret that space as rejection. See it as part of her natural rhythm, unless her behavior consistently feels disrespectful or manipulative. I want to invite you to reflect on this idea. How often have you made a woman's warmth the measuring stick of your self-worth? When she's warm, you feel confident, strong, desirable. When she withdraws, you spiral into doubt, second, guessing everything you said or did. But this roller coaster is not inevitable. The key is this: you can stay warm even when she turns cold, because her behavior does not dictate your emotional temperature. That's your freedom, that's your power, and the beauty is that when you live in this space where your emotional center is yours to maintain, you also begin to communicate differently. Instead of trying to solve her ambiguity by questioning or chasing, you express what you feel without expectation. You might say, "It's really nice spending time with you. I enjoy our connection. I'm here and open if you want to deepen that." And then you let go. You let her reveal who she is, what she's capable of, how she chooses to navigate her feelings without jumping in to rescue her from her own uncertainty. This is where the most profound attraction happens, not in constant pursuit, but in respectful allowance. When you stop reacting to her mixed signals and instead start responding with clarity and self-trust, you become the very man who invites her into emotional clarity herself. In other words, your steadiness becomes an anchor, not just for you but for her. But we also need to talk about a harder truth. Sometimes mixed signals are not about ambivalence, not about protection, not about past wounds. Sometimes they are simply about control. A woman may use ambiguity as a way to keep you invested without ever committing herself. She may enjoy the attention, the power, the feeling of being pursued, but she has no intention of meeting you halfway emotionally. And this is where your clarity becomes absolutely essential. When you notice that her behavior has become a pattern of seduction and withdrawal with no forward movement, when her signals create more confusion than connection consistently over time, you must step back and ask yourself, is this truly serving me? Because your time, energy, emotional availability, these are precious resources. You don't owe anyone endless patience when they consistently meet your openness with calculated inconsistency. This doesn't mean confronting her aggressively or closing your heart completely. It means being honest with yourself about what you want and what you're willing to tolerate. The man who respects himself knows how to hold space for a woman's emotional complexity, but he also knows when that complexity has become a barrier rather than a bridge. So here's the practice I want you to cultivate. Each time you encounter mixed signals, pause. Before reacting, reflect. Does this feel like natural ambivalence? Or like emotional manipulation? Does this woman seem genuinely interested but afraid? Or does she seem to enjoy keeping me guessing indefinitely? And then choose your response consciously. You can remain kind, you can remain warm, but you can also step back, protect your energy, and decide that your emotional peace matters more than staying engaged in a dynamic that isn't nourishing. Because ultimately, this is the truth you must embrace. You are not powerless in the face of her signals. You get to choose how you interpret them. You get to decide how much energy you invest. Her mixed signals are not an accident, but neither are your responses. They reveal who you are just as much as they reveal who she is, and this is where true self-mastery begins, not in controlling her, but in mastering yourself. The man who understands this will never again feel hostage to a woman's emotional unpredictability. He will recognize her complexity without losing his own clarity, and that balance, witnessing her as she is while standing firmly as you are, is what creates truly magnetic relationships. And as you sit with this awareness that your emotional peace is yours to protect, you may begin to notice something profound happening within you. You're no longer trying to decode her every move. You're no longer letting your self-esteem swing wildly in reaction to her mood shifts. Instead, you are cultivating presence, and that is where your deepest power resides. Because here's what I want you to understand. When you stop chasing consistency from her and start embodying consistency within yourself, you shift the entire dynamic between you. You see, many women, especially those who struggle with their own emotional ambivalence, are drawn to men who radiate steadiness. Not a robotic kind of detachment, but a warm, self-possessed calm, the kind of calm that says, I'm here, fully present, but I'm not owned by this moment. I don't need your validation to feel whole. This is magnetic because it creates an emotional contrast. Her mixed signals are fluctuations. Your groundedness is stability. And in that contrast, something remarkable happens. She begins to feel the space and freedom to regulate herself without fearing that your reactions will overwhelm or punish her. You become the anchor she didn't even know she was looking for. But this also means you need to develop an even deeper skill, the ability to hold dual awareness. What does that mean? It means being able to see her clearly, not just her charm or affection, but also her patterns of withdrawal or control, and see yourself clearly at the same time. When she pulls back after an intimate connection, can you notice her hesitancy without rushing to fix it? Can you observe her distance and, instead of interpreting it as rejection, understand that this is part of how she navigates closeness? When she suddenly turns cold after being warm for days, can you sit in that discomfort without retaliating or collapsing emotionally? This is emotional maturity, and this is where your experience as a man over 30 becomes your advantage, not your burden. At this stage in your life, you've seen enough to know that not every connection is meant to become a relationship. You understand that not every woman's warmth guarantees emotional availability, but the question you must ask yourself is this: do I have the courage to remain open while remaining discerning? Because too often, men close their hearts when they feel hurt by mixed signals. They become cold themselves. Detached, jaded, they take her ambiguity as a reason to give up on vulnerability altogether, but you don't have to go there. You can stay warm, you can keep your heart soft without making it available to manipulation. That's the nuance that many men never master, emotional availability with discernment. You can express your interest, your desire, your care, and you can also express your limits, your standards, your truth. For example, you might say, I enjoy being around you and I value this connection, but I also value clarity and consistency. I'm not here to chase or guess, I'm here to connect. This kind of directness is rare, it's vulnerable, and it's powerful because it's not coming from a place of demand, it's coming from a place of self-respect. And that self-respect is what teaches a woman how to treat you. You are not punishing her for her ambiguity. You are simply demonstrating how you expect to be engaged with openness, honesty, and consistency. And here's the beautiful part. When a woman senses that you respect yourself this way, she naturally rises to meet you, if she is capable of it. And if she is not, she will withdraw even more. Either way, you win. Because clarity, whether it comes in the form of deepening intimacy or a natural separation, gives you peace. And peace is what allows you to navigate dating, relationships, love itself, without losing yourself in someone else's uncertainty. So let me ask you, can you begin to practice this today? The next time you sense mixed signals, pause. Notice your first instinct, whether it's to chase, to fix, to retreat, or to withdraw affection, and instead breathe into your own center. Remind yourself, her signals do not define me. I get to decide how I respond. I get to choose what pace I set, what space I hold, what energy I give. This is not about controlling her, it's about honoring you. Because a woman's mixed signals are only disempowering when you lose sight of your own boundaries. But when you remain connected to your truth, when you hold space for her without abandoning yourself, you become something truly rare in today's dating landscape, a man who is grounded, warm, wise, and free, and that freedom is magnetic. The woman who is ready for love, real love, will feel drawn to that freedom, because it communicates something even her own mixed signals cannot hide, that you are already whole, already centered, already at peace, whether she chooses closeness or distance, and this is the greatest gift you can give, not just to her, but to yourself. So as we continue deeper into this journey, let this settle in. You are not here to fix her emotional weather. You are here to remain steady while she navigates it, clear on what you want, clear on what you're willing to accept, clear on how you will show up as a man who respects himself no matter what signals come your way. That clarity will serve you far more than any attempt to decode or outplay her. Because at the end of the day, love is not about control, it's about freedom. And freedom begins when you stop needing her consistency and start trusting your own. So here you are, sitting more calmly with this awareness that her mixed signals are neither random nor malicious but part of her emotional language, a language that, if you listen carefully, reveals her insecurities, her longing, her fears, her desires, and sometimes, yes, her strategies. But you now know that your role is not to decode her every signal, or to become entangled in the highs and lows of her mood shifts. Your role is to stay present, to honor your feelings without needing to control hers. This doesn't mean you pretend not to care. No, caring deeply while staying centered is a mark of maturity. You see, when you show up with both warmth and self-respect, you send a very different signal back to her. You communicate without bravado or gamesmanship. I want connection, but not at the expense of my peace. I am open to intimacy, but not at the cost of my integrity. I value your attention, but I value myself more. This is where emotional boundaries meet emotional availability. You're not closing yourself off. You're simply saying, this is who I am, this is what I desire. I'm not going to chase clarity where there is only confusion. I'm going to stand here fully myself, and if you are ready to meet me here, wonderful, and if you are not, that's okay too. And when you stand this way, you experience something liberating. You no longer feel hostage to someone else's emotional weather. You no longer wait anxiously for that text to arrive so you can feel whole. You no longer second, guess your worth because her attention waxes and wanes. You begin to feel solid, rooted not because she is consistent, but because you are, and that consistency is what makes you attractive in the deepest sense. A woman may feel drawn to your presence precisely because you are no longer mirroring her chaos. You have become the calm in the storm. And this is exactly what many women long for, even if they don't know how to ask for it. They long for a man who can hold space for their emotional complexity without needing to fix it, solve it, or be undone by it. But let's be very clear, holding space doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment. It doesn't mean enduring manipulation or endless cycles of hot and cold that drain your spirit. There comes a moment when the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for her is to walk away from a dynamic that is fundamentally unhealthy. That's not rejection, that's self-respect. And self-respect is what allows you to keep your heart open, even after walking away. You're not bitter, you're not resentful, you simply know who you are. You've learned that her mixed signals are not a reflection of your inadequacy. They are a reflection of where she is emotionally, and whether or not she's able or willing to meet you in the kind of relationship you desire. When you grasp this, you stop blaming her for her behavior. You stop blaming yourself too. You start seeing clearly, this is who she is right now, this is what I want, and if those two things don't align, I can let go with grace, knowing that my emotional well-being is not dependent on her ability to offer consistency. That kind of clarity is rare, it's powerful, and it's yours to cultivate. So as we close this conversation, I want to leave you with this thought. Her mixed signals are not an accident. They're not an accident because they reflect her emotional reality, whether that reality is full of genuine ambivalence, fear of vulnerability, or a desire for control. But your response to those signals is never accidental either. It's a choice to remain grounded, a choice to communicate clearly, a choice to respect yourself enough to stay warm but not needy, available but not desperate, present but not reactive. You get to define the emotional space you inhabit, no matter what she does. That is your freedom, and freedom, my friend, is where love flourishes. Not in control, not in certainty, not in decoding every signal, but in standing confidently as yourself, meeting her as she is, and choosing connection only where it feels nourishing, respectful, mutual, and alive. So as you move forward, whether with this woman or the next, carry this clarity with you. You are already whole. You are already enough. Her signals may fluctuate, but you can remain steady. And from that steadiness, you will attract relationships that feel easier, deeper, truer, not because women stop sending mixed signals, but because you no longer lose yourself trying to chase them down. You stay rooted, you stay open, you stay free. Thank you for being here with me today. If this conversation spoke to you, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your reflections, your stories, your moments of realization. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Intimacy Lab for more conversations like this, where we explore the subtle, beautiful, and sometimes complicated dance of human relationships. Here's to you, to your clarity, and to the love you're creating from a place of deep self-trust.